So here we're going to start our guided notes on the verb avoir. And we remember the verb avoir means to have, which I'm going to write here. Means to have. So this is going to show possession. So things that belong to you, like we had outlined in the slideshow. So let's start by filling in those conjugations and then talking about their pronunciation. So to match with je, you can tell we're going to start with a vowel because we've got that J apostrophe. So it's je, A-I. To match it with the pronoun tu, it's a, A-S. To match avoir with il, elle, or on, you're going to use a, just the letter A. Then for nous, it's avons, A-V-O-N-S. For vous, it's avez, A-V-E-Z. And for il and elle plural, it's O-N-T-on. So when we talk about pronunciation here, it's important to note that a couple of these sound similar. So starting up here, we have J. We've got that buzzing sound. They like to add that Z to remind us. J. We know how to say tu, and this is A. So we ignore the S, which makes it sound identical to this one. Il, elle, and on, a. But because every sentence in French has to have a subject, it'll be really easy to tell when it is tu as, A-S, versus il, elle, on, a, A. And so I wanted to demonstrate here that in the plural forms, all of these start with a vowel where the pronoun before it ends with an S. And so what we're going to have is called elision, it's called liaison. So what we're going to have is called liaison, where that S sound that normally would be silent travels over to meet with that verb. So it's not nous avons, we have nous avons. So this becomes nous, like we would normally say nous, and this is avons. Nous avons. We have vous, like we would normally say, but that S sound travels over. It's vous avez. That's how I pronounce that. Vous avez. And finally, for il and elle plural, that Z sound is going to travel from the tail end of il plural or elle plural. So it's il or elles ont. And remember, we ignore that T, we ignore that Z, and we ignore that S for pronunciation rules. So let's do an example sentence for each of these. So I'm going to do my example sentences. I might say, j'ai un frère. It's a positive sense. So when I make this kind of sense negative, remember we're going to put the negative markers around that verb. So I might say, je n'ai pas de sœur. I don't have a sister. We remember that un and une turn into D or D apostrophe. So for each of these, I'll just pick a negative or a positive sentence for my examples. But I want to remind us that the ne, par, and apostrophe pas sandwiches right around that verb. So I might say, tu as une grande maison. You have a big house. I might say, il a un chien. He has a dog. We might say, nous avons des grands-parents. We have some grandparents. And remember, when we make things like grands-parents, plural, we put an S with grand and with parents. Here we might say, vous avez I might say une femme. So to ask somebody if they have a wife, you say vous avez une femme. And then we'll check out these in the negative, because when we have these in the negative, it's going to break up that liaison. It's going to get rid of that Z sound. So I might say, ils n'ont pas de chat. They don't have a cat. So we see in the positive, we say ils ont. But when we break that up with that negative marker, like an apostrophe, it goes from ils ont to ils n'ont pas. So this Z sound here, here, and here depends on that subject touching the verb, like in nous avons and vous avez. But when you break up the subject and the verb with your negative markers, it gets rid of the Z sound. So, ils n'ont pas de chat. All right, so we can also use the verb avoir not to just talk about possessions. We use it with talking about age and with using the phrase il y a. So let's scroll on down just a little bit. Très bien. So, the important thing to know about age is that this is really different than what we do in English. So in English, we use the verb to be, like I am 15, I am 728 years old. In French, it's different. So I want to remind myself, this is unlike English. I've got that note for myself that, yes, I know this is going to sound weird if I were to translate it directly into English, but that's not what we're learning. We're not learning translation. We're learning how French is structured. And here it's structured really different than English. So I'm going to use the verb avoir to show age. So when we see this as a question, we're going to see something like this. I'm going to write this in pencil and kind of show you the important question we're going to highlight there. You might see the question, I'll use this one, it's a little better. Tu as quel âge? So here I want to highlight that conjugation of avoir in blue, like I've got them up there. So tu as quel âge? And we've got our question word quel, which means which. So you have which age. So we've got our important question word there in purple. And so to answer this, you would say something along the lines of j'ai blank un. So here we've got, again, that conjugation of avoir. And you're going to fill in a number here. So for me, I'd say j'ai 27 ans. My dog Alice, if she could speak French, she would say j'ai 3 ans. She's 3. My grandpa would say j'ai 90 ans. He's 90. So that's how we can use avoir to express our age. And so we remember that when you're asking somebody their age, you're going to use the question word quel. You're going to use the verb avoir in that question as well. So next we have the phrase il y a. which we remember from last chapter means there is or there are. And so it's important to notice here that the phrase il y a includes this conjugation of avoir right here, which I'm going to highlight in the blue. There is the a that we would use for the il, elle, and on. And you can see your subject is even il right there. So let's write a couple of example sentences. So I might say in the positive, il y a un jardin à la maison. There is a garden at the house. And again, we're going to highlight where that verb is so we can identify it really easy in that sentence. And now we're going to write a negative sentence, and things are going to look a little bit different than we're used to, but just follow along. So I was talking about my house. I might say, chez moi, il n'y a pas de balcon. I don't have a balcony in my house. So we're going to track where that verb conjugation is. It's here. And what we're used to placing negative markers to sandwich directly around the verb. So I know that it would be really tempting to put the N apostrophe here and pas there. But with the phrase il y a, that E is an exception. So we're going to learn a little bit more about this probably in French 3. So it'll take a while to get there. But what we have to do in this case, when we have that E with il y a, we have to group that E with the verb. So we have the N apostrophe go before the E and the pas go after. So I know we've talked about how we make these negative sentences. So most of the other words in your sentences, they're going to be outside the sandwich. They're not part of it. But in this case, E, think of it as an extra bonus topping in your sandwich that you only get once in a while. So in most negative sentences, there's not going to be anything else in between the ne pas or an apostrophe pas other than your verb. But in the specialty case of il y a, that E gets placed in there as well. So I'm really going to highlight this for myself. I'm going to kind of circle this. And I'm going to put an exclamation point because it's important that I remember how that works. So that is a little bit about the verb avoir. We've got our conjugations. We've got some examples of how to use it other than just showing possession, like I have a dog or you have a house. So we can use it with age and with the phrase there is or there are. So you can see that there are some places where the verb avoir is used like the verb to be in English. Like I am 20, where you use the verb to be like I am. You don't use that être in French. Use avoir. J'ai 20 ans. I have 20 years. And instead of saying there is, it's not il est un jardin, it's il y a. Which literally means he there has. And I know that's something we wouldn't say in English, but it works in French. So this is just a little bit about the verb avoir for you to follow along with.